He once played guitar with his own blood, passed out drunk behind the stage, and destroyed hotel rooms with Ozzy Osbourne. Then he came back and cleaned things up like nothing had happened. Zakk Wylde isn't simply a guitar player, he's a force of nature. The loud heart of American heavy metal for more than 30 years. But now that he's in his 50s, Zakk stands on stage with a guitar that used to belong to Dimebag Darrell, not a bottle of Jack. His eyes are clear, his heart is clean, and his guitar is new. The guy who used to live next to a Marshall amp now talks to God every morning in a quiet voice. He still wears leather and has a wild beard, but he moves more slowly now. As if they knew exactly how much it would cost to go too far again. Zakk Wylde didn't let celebrity or scandal get the best of him. He decided to halt, get up, and keep going. Because of that, he's become a rare person in the metal industry. A wild soul who understood when to quit, a warrior who never betrayed his fallen brethren, and a parent, husband, and friend who didn't act like one. This narrative isn't only about a rocker who made it through. It's also about a soul that was lost in the dark and is now walking in the light. It's not to be praised, but to show that genuine strength doesn't come from a riff, it comes from remaining true to who you are. Jeffrey Philip V. Lant was born on January 14, 1967, in Bayonne, New Jersey, a working-class industrial town where no one thought one of the most unique guitarists of the 1980s would come from. His family was Polish and lived a simple existence. They weren't impoverished enough to starve, but they didn't have enough money for Marshall amps or Black Sabbath tickets. Zakk doesn't talk about it much in public, but everyone knows that his father, Jerome, grew up in an orphanage. That's where he gets his strength and calmness. Zakk was lonely as a child, the type of loneliness that comes from being enamored with music but having no one to share it with. He got his first guitar when he was 8, but he stopped playing it. He came back when he was 14, and this time he never let go. Zakk started to practice guitar as if it were the only thing he could do. He played for 12 hours straight on some days, until his fingers bled. He would fall asleep in class, his mind full of notes and vibrating strings. Zakk secluded himself in the garage and played the same solo over and over again until his hands grew numb while other kids played sports. Not because someone made him do it or because he wanted to be a star. He thought he had a purpose in life when he had the guitar with him. School didn't matter much. Zakk did it because he had to, but it was there that he first felt what it was like to stand in front of an audience, playing school shows with a cheap guitar and anxiety and rebellion in his eyes. No one screamed during those shows, but they taught Zakk one very important thing. If you want people to hear you, your guitar needs to be loud and clear. Zakk worked at a grocery store and played in a local band named Zyrus after he graduated from Jackson Memorial High School in New Jersey. He started going by the stage name Zakk Wylde around this time. It's a moniker he made up. Crazy and the kind you have to ask twice because no one knows how to spell it. Zakk's youth wasn't full of big changes, yet every day taught him one thing. He would make a fire himself if there was no light coming from outside. The guitar, which was once just a dead instrument, slowly became what made Zakk Wylde who he was and what he was meant to do. Nobody showed him how to be an artist. But by repeating things over and over and being obsessed with every note, he learned how to live and how to never look back. Early career: no one in New Jersey paid attention to Zakk Wylde in the 1980s. He played guitar in a little band named Zyrus, and he would stand in the back and play riffs behind the lead singer at local bars with an ancient Gibson Les Paul draped over his shoulder. No praise, no spotlight. Zakk played with everything he had, even if no one was looking. He once claimed, "I would play like I was opening for Black Sabbath at Madison Square Garden, even if there were only 3 drunk guys there." It wasn't being cocky, it was having a bad attitude. The kind that changes a musical trip that seems hopeless. When Jake E. Lee quit Ozzy Osbourne's band in 1987, there was a quiet search for someone to take his place. A former guitar teacher of Zakk's told him to send a demo tape to Sharon Osbourne. The cassette had a few riffs, a short solo, and some bad singing on it. No polish, no manufacturing. But it was enough to make Ozzy stop what he was doing. Ozzy couldn't ignore how Zakk played. It was raw, wild, and precise all at the same time. Their first meeting was like a scene from a real-life rock movie. Zakk said, "I was shaking like a leaf. He told me to play. I could hardly lift my hand. But after just a few notes, Ozzy turned to Sharon and said, "He's the one." Within months, Zakk, the soft-spoken blonde kid fresh out of an unknown band, officially became Ozzy Osbourne's new guitarist, stepping into the shoes once filled by legends like Randy Rhoads and Jake E. Lee. In 1988, they released their first album together, No Rest for the Wicked. What Zakk brought wasn't imitation, it was a completely original style. Razor-sharp riffs, blistering yet soulful solos, and above all, a profound respect for Ozzy's music. In less than 2 years, Zakk went from a nameless local guitarist to one of the most promising young faces in American metal. But what set him apart wasn't just technique, it was emotion. Every time he stood beside Ozzy, Zakk didn't just play, he bled, he lived it. He performed like he was delivering his own farewell. And from that point on, Zakk Wylde's career was no longer a lonely grind in a cold garage. It became part of a legend where a kid from New Jersey was entrusted with carrying the final scream of an icon. Career breakthrough. Zakk Wylde officially entered the ranks of heavy metal's great guitarists when he released No Rest for the Wicked 1988 with Ozzy Osbourne. At the time, no one knew this blonde-haired, ferocious guitarist would stay by the Prince of Darkness for so long. But it was Zakk, with his brutal playing, gritty tone, and a die-before-compromise spirit, who helped Ozzy transition through the difficult period following the death of Randy Rhoads and the departure of Jake E. Lee. The 1991 album No More Tears marked a major milestone in Zakk's career. It was the first time he took a deeper role in the songwriting process, and his guitar work was no longer just a replacement. It became the new soul of the band. The solo in the title track, No More Tears, was a guitar manifesto, fierce and haunting, like the cry of a soul torn between heaven and hell. And Mama, I'm Coming Home, the album's only ballad, proved that Zakk could also be tender. Like a child longing for his mother. He co-wrote that song and helped Ozzy deliver one of the most emotionally resonant hits of his career. After Osmosis, 1995, Zakk was invited to join Guns N' Roses to replace Slash, but ultimately declined. He didn't want to leave Ozzy. That choice revealed something core about Zakk's character, loyalty to the man who believed in him, even if it meant passing on bigger fame. Still, Zakk knew, if he didn't build something of his own, he'd forever live in someone else's shadow. That's when Black Label Society, BLS, was born. In 1998, Zakk founded BLS, not to compete, but to create a world where he could fully be himself. The band embodied raw, wild, growling music, just like Zakk. Their debut album, Sonic Brew, wasn't a massive commercial hit. But it laid the foundation for a cult-like BLS culture embraced by metal fans worldwide through albums like Stronger Than Death, 2000, 1919 Eternal, 2002, Mafia, 2005, and Order of the Black, 2010. Zakk didn't just serve as guitarist and vocalist, he was the soul, the mapmaker, the conductor of an entire empire. The song In This River, written in memory of Dimebag Darrell, became an unspoken anthem of brotherhood and loss within the metal community. This is Zakk's unique gift. Despite his aggressive music, he never lacked emotional depth. In ballads like Spoken the Wheel or Dead as Yesterday, you can feel the spirit of a man who's weathered storms, carrying wounds only music could heal. Zakk didn't stop at BLS. In 2014, he launched Zakk Sabbath, a band dedicated to reinterpreting Black Sabbath classics in his own style. This wasn't just a tribute act. It was Zakk's way of honoring his roots while bringing Sabbath sound closer to a new generation. Then in 2022, a jaw-dropping announcement shook the metal world. Zakk Wylde was chosen to step in for Dimebag Darrell in Pantera's reunion lineup, alongside Charlie Bonanti, Anthrax, Phil Anselmo, and Rex Brown. This wasn't a new Pantera, but a living tribute, where Zakk played Dime's actual guitar, with Dime's longtime Tech Grady champion on board to preserve the original sound. For Zakk, this wasn't a career high, it was a sacred duty. He never tried to be Dimebag, he just wanted to do right by his friend's legacy. Zakk Wylde doesn't have a #1 Billboard album. He doesn't flood the radio with hit singles. But he has a fiercely loyal following, from bikers, war veterans, and underground rockers to young loners who see themselves in BLS's gritty riffs. He didn't create a passing trend. He built an unbreakable fortress, a home for the lost. And in a world where everything is replaceable, Zakk Wylde remains exactly who he is. Not a substitute, not to be substituted, a warrior, a storyteller with a guitar, and a soul forever fused with metal in a way no one else can replicate. Personal life. When people think of Zakk Wylde with his wild beard, torn leather vests, sledgehammer-heavy guitars, and ferocious growl, few imagine that behind that fierce image lies a man of one true love. In the world of rock and roll, where marriages often shatter like guitars smashed on stage, Zakk Wylde is the rare exception. He married his high school sweetheart, Barbara Wylde, and has stayed by her side ever since. Zakk met Barbara in the 8th grade. In those early years when he was still playing in dusty rehearsal rooms across New Jersey, she was the one quietly behind the scenes, handling logistics, bringing water, counting the meager gig money, never once asking for credit. She didn't fall in love with a rock star. She fell for a kid with nothing but a guitar and a promise. "I'll try my best to the end." And Zakk kept that promise, not with fame, but with unwavering loyalty. They married in the late 1980s and have 4 children together: Haley Ray, Jesse John Michael, Hendrix Halen Michael Rhodes, and Sabbath Page. Their names alone reveal how deeply Zakk's love for music runs, each one a tribute to legends he reveres. Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, Tony Iommi, and Jimmy Page. But for Zakk, family isn't a shrine to idols. It's the only place he can come home and remove his battle armor. Barbara is more than just a wife. She's his manager, his road companion on every tour. And the first to notice when his health took a sharp decline in 2009. When Zakk suddenly developed blood clots in his lungs and legs, it was she who rushed him to the hospital. Doctors warned if he continued drinking, he could die. Zakk, who used to drink like breathing, who treated Jack Daniels as soul disinfectant, quit alcohol entirely after that scare. It was a decision far from easy, but absolutely necessary for music, for family. For himself. Since then, Zakk has adopted a healthier lifestyle, eating clean, lifting weights, meditating, and even reading the Bible every morning. He still plays metal, still dresses in black, still roars on stage. But backstage, you might find him sitting quietly, eyes closed in prayer, or calling his wife. No affair rumors, no quick rock star flings. Before Barbara, Zakk briefly dated model Susie Owens, but completely cut ties afterward. In over 30 years, his name has never been attached to a family scandal. In an industry full of lost souls, Zakk chose to stand still and hold tight to the hand that's been with him from the beginning. "I'm a diehard New York Yankees fan," Zakk once joked, "but I'm even more loyal to my wife than to my team." Beneath the humor lies a rare life philosophy. A man can scream into a sea of strangers, but when he comes home, he still needs a place to quietly lay down his guitar and rest his head on the shoulder of the one he trusts most. For Zakk Wylde, that place has never changed. Legacy and influence. Zakk Wylde didn't leave his mark merely through growling riffs, screaming pinch harmonics that echoed like howls in the night, or his hulking frame slumped over a guitar after every show. He left behind something deeper, the image of a metal warrior who lived fully, not for fame, not for trends, but out of loyalty to music and the people within it. In the guitar world, Zakk Wylde is an unmistakable icon. He's not the most technically complex player, nor the most revolutionary innovator. But few can craft such a personal guitar tone, the kind that lets you recognize him with just a single note, the sound he created. Wild yet profound, became a signature style that influenced generations across genres, from groove metal to doom, southern rock to modern heavy. Zakk is also one of the rare artists universally respected across the often divided metal community. Ozzy fans, Pantera fans, Black Sabbath loyalists, or BLS diehards, they may not all agree on everything, but they share one sentiment. A shrug, a nod, and a simple, "Zakk's the man," because he's never betrayed anyone. On a deeper level, it's Zakk's way of living that defines his legacy. In an industry flooded with exit strategies, shifting allegiances, and artists willing to sell everything for attention, Zakk stayed the course, even when it meant walking alone, quitting alcohol, or living in contrast to the world around him. He's proof that you can be a fiery artist and still a devoted husband, a gentle father, and a loyal friend who doesn't vanish when things get tough. And perhaps Zakk Wylde's greatest legacy doesn't lie in albums like No More Tears, Mafia, or Doom Crew Incorporated, but in his irreplaceable presence on stage. Where he doesn't just play guitar, but sends out a message that metal is not just sound, it's loyalty, courage, and unshakable belief. What makes a true metal legend? For Zakk Wylde, the answer may be this. He never tried to become one. He simply stayed true to himself, and that was enough. Current life? Though now 58 years old, Zakk Wylde shows no signs of slowing down. In fact, 2024 and 2025 have seen him at perhaps his most energized and active state since turning 50, not just performing, but honoring the legacies he grew up with, fought alongside, and now continues to carry forward. The centerpiece of Zakk's current activities is the ongoing Pantera tour, a massive global tribute launched in 2022 to honor the band's late members, Dimebag Darrell and Vinnie Paul. In 2025, Zakk and Pantera continue to bring this tour to North America's biggest stages, from Philadelphia and Tampa to Santa Clara and Denver. With Dimebag's actual guitar in hand, Zakk isn't just playing music, he's resurrecting memories. Fans who once mourned Pantera's end now stand before the stage, shedding tears for a presence that feels different, but genuine, heartfelt, and worthy. At the same time, Zakk is also a key performer on the Experience Hendrix Tour 2025, a nationwide celebration of one of his childhood heroes, Jimi Hendrix. Spanning March to April 2025 across dozens of cities in the US and Canada, the tour features guitar legends like Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Eric Johnson, and Marcus King. But Zakk has been one of the most talked about acts, thanks to his distinct style that channels not just technique, but unfiltered rock and roll soul. Meanwhile, Zakk remains the frontman of Zakk Sabbath, his tribute band to Black Sabbath. In late 2024 and early 2025, they toured the US on the King of the Monsters circuit, alongside tribute acts like Zoso and the Iron Maidens. In early 2025, Zakk Sabbath continued their journey across Europe, from Manchester to Berlin, playing iconic covers like Nimeby, Iron Man, and War Pigs, as a tribute to Tony Iommi, whom Zakk reverently calls the father of heavy metal. On top of that, released a digital album titled Greatest Riffs with Zakk Sabbath, a compilation of fan-favorite covers. The album has been warmly received not only by die-hard fans, but also as a milestone marking over 30 years of Zakk keeping the Sabbath flame alive. Perhaps the most emotional moment of 2025 will be Zakk's participation in Black Sabbath's farewell concert, scheduled for July 5, 2025, at Villa Park in Birmingham. This historic show marks the full reunion of Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward after more than 2 decades. Zakk isn't an official member of Sabbath, but his invitation to perform at this farewell night proves how deeply woven he is into the band's spiritual legacy. When he's not touring, Zakk spends time at home in California with his wife, Barbara Ann, and their 4 children. He continues to avoid fleeting temptations and maintains a healthy lifestyle after quitting alcohol in 2009. Appearing on podcasts, talk shows, and behind-the-scenes videos, he always exudes warmth and humor, but also the discipline and intensity of a true musical warrior. Zakk Wylde has never announced retirement. Perhaps he never will, because even when the lights go out, he'll still be playing. For Ozzy, for Dimebag, for Sabbath, for metal fans around the world, and for himself, the man who never stopped living for music. So what about you? If you could witness a Zakk Wylde performance right now, what song would you choose to hear? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories of blood, sweat, and music, like the one you've just watched. Thanks for being here and see you in the next video. Rock on!